Good afternoon. I'm delighted to introduce the Leica panel discussing the crucial topic, elevating women's voices in photography and art. We have a great mix of voices today. First up, we have Rania Matar. Rania was born and raised in Lebanon, moved to the United States in 1984. She uses photography to explore themes of personal and collective identity through portraits of female adolescence and womanhood. Her work, often shot between the United States and the Middle East, resonates with audiences worldwide. Joining her is Fatma Almosa, an Emirati photographer and Leica ambassador who is renowned for her expertise in black and white photography. Through her work, Fatma aims to preserve heritage and culture while also celebrating serendipity and emotion. Next, we have Hind Taryam, an emerging photographer from right here in Sharjah. Hind's passion for travel photography has taken her on adventures around the globe, as you can see evident in her photographs at the Leica booth gallery here at Xposure. Rounding out our panel, we will be joined by Karin-Rehn Kaufmann, who is the art director and chief representative of Leica Galleries International. Her leadership has shaped the Leica Gallery's global presence, and she plays a vital role in the Leica Oscar Barnack Awards. To keep the conversation flowing, we're excited to have as our moderator, Lars Boering, the director of the European Journalism Center and a highly respected figure in the photography world. Lars is a teacher, collector, consultant, and advisor, and friend, and his expertise will be invaluable in guiding today's discussion. Let's welcome our esteemed panel to the stage.
The book here.
Thank you, Kira. Pollack, you couldn't have done it any better. It's a pleasure and an honor for you to be introducing us. And it's for me today my humble task to elevate the voices of female photographers in photography and art. I'm happy to do that. Yeah, let's start. You've been introduced to all of the people on the stage, and so let's start from there. I do need a clicker, so if somebody can give me that, because otherwise we'll be looking at the same screen. And there are, of course, 3 amazing photos there, but it's... Can we get that? Or is it on the... No. I think they're going to get it. Let's just start. Hind, thank you. We spoke briefly in the gallery. That is here around the corner, the gallery of Leica. And we looked at your work, and I had already looked at it. No, sorry. See, that's why I have to apologize. I started you. Apologies for starting. I was supposed to start with Karin. That's why I was asking for it. There you go. Make a mistake in the beginning and then you're done. Karin.
Yes.
Sorry, Hind. My apologies.
Okay.
Karin. You are here at Xposure, and you have created a gallery, I would say, but there's many galleries that you have created in the world. You are the art director and chief representative of the Leica Galleries International. How many galleries are there?
So we have at the moment, we have 28 galleries. Is that working for you?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. 28 galleries around the world. And I started with 4 galleries in 2008. And it's overwhelming because with these galleries, we give a lot of photographers from all over the world. I mean, from Tokyo to Boston, from Los Angeles to Prague, from Düsseldorf to London, and so on. So many opportunities to show their work and to tell their moving story. And this is not very common today, to give photographers the platform to show their work. And it's also very important for Leica that the essential of Leica is what comes out of the camera and this is the picture. And the essential is the person behind the camera, because without a photographer, an amateur, or a person behind the camera, there are no images. So that means taking care of photographers and images is most important for Leica.
It is something that I know that many camera manufacturers are, of course, fascinated, and they use the imagery of photographers that use that camera as an example, very often the famous names. But Leica has many names and many photographers that work with you. In the galleries you show the work of all. And for me it feels that the quality of Leica camera is of course undisputable, but it's so interesting to see that this layer of taking care of the culture of photography is so dear to you.
So, I mean, there is something special about Leica, about the Leica brand. And I very often mention in my speeches that also I really feel, being also here surrounded by these wonderful photographers, that this is our family, that we really try to take care of this family with all our cultural activities. And this is what I mentioned, because it's, you need the human being, you need the spirit, the heart, the heart and the eye to have these amazing images. And that means to also take care, of course, also of all the persons behind. And this is like, yeah, I always feel being at home with all the people of Leica around the world, and there's something special about them. Something mystic, perhaps.
Do you recall why your love for photography started? Did it start with a photograph? Where's the fascination for photography?
For me personally?
Yes, please.
I mean, it was a demand at the end, because in 2008 there was the idea to close the 4 existing Leica galleries. And then my husband and I said, okay, then let's start to do our independent Leica gallery in Salzburg. And so the journey starts at the end. So 28 galleries, and we will open next week in New York, a gallery, and in Tokyo. So then we will have 30 at the end of this year. And so, I mean, this is the importance of photography. This is such an important language today, and taking care of this language of the heart, of the spirit, of all the different nations. So this is my feeling, that is really, and even what is coming with AR and all these discussions. So having direct contact to the photographers, I think this is really, really important.
Yeah. I have on the screen an image of the gallery in Amsterdam. I am from Amsterdam, apologies, we had to do it. We were there, but one of the things that was so fascinating, the store had opened. It's a wonderful store across the museum. We were there at the opening, and I heard from the team lately, it is very eye-opening to us, because people come to the store not to just look at the camera, also buy the camera. I hope, I think. But they say it's like almost 50-50. Some people really come to the location because they have known about it, they've heard about it, and they look at the work. Is that kind of where you're aiming for, that you want to have them, and the technology and the beautiful lenses, but also that they experience the work?
I mean, when you ask me this question, I'm fighting for that the Leica galleries are on the level of photography galleries on the same level. So I don't want to combine it with cameras in a way. Also, we are open, let's say 80% to other photographers, if their images are good. So let's try to start also to exhibit some of them in our Leica galleries, because it's a common language. Of course, we are focusing on Leica photographers, but we are open-minded, and this is also important. But for me, it's not so about the technique, it's really about art and culture and photography.
Yeah. I will come back to you later in this talk about the work that you also do with the Oscar Barnack Award, which is also where Rania comes in. You were one of the nominees of the award. But I'd like to switch to the work of Fatma Almosa, and welcome also here on the stage. It's a pleasure to have you here and to show the work. Let's start with taking a look.
Do you dream in black and white? There is a world to discover in monochrome. Feelings, expressions, shapes, patterns, and emotions. Free from distractions. A world defined by the sacred balance of photography. The exposure triangle, aperture, shutter speed, ISO. The tools I need to express my personal view of the world in a timeless and distinctive way. To tell my stories, to share my inspiration. Combined with my beloved Noctilux lenses, the M11 monochrome is the camera that embodies and expresses my love for black and white photography. Equipped with a unique monochrome sensor that captures the finest details. With the exceptional performance under the most challenging lighting conditions. A camera that helps me create art as I see it. Because photography is not just about passing on your heritage to future generations. It's also about promoting the pride and glory of the heritage and culture that is embedded in the heart and soul of the people. My name is Fatma Almosa. I'm Emirati woman from Abu Dhabi. I'm passionate about Leica M and Noctilux photography since 2015.
Thank you for this wonderful applause. I had to put this in because I thought to hear the voice and to also talk about the work is always the best. I see the combination of the fascination for technique and working with the best tools. But for me, looking at the work, it was very much, I was drawn to your eye. You do shoot black and white. We have many examples of black and white. Why are you so drawn to the black and white photography?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's such an honor today to be part of this amazing community. And I was amazed and surprised by the video that you played. I wasn't expected this, but you brought for me such great moments for this project. This project is like a dream project for me in my history in photography. And to be honest, like everyone is asking me, why monochrome? And why you keep doing photography in black and white theme? Well, and I always answer them like, color is important in the world. And it's something primary in our lives. Like, color is beautiful. However, sometimes it can be overwhelmed. And black and white photography for me is something very classic, timeless, and then it has the certain moods that gives you the focus to focus on the subject of the artwork or the picture without any color distractions. And then you think about, or you see the world in a different aspect. You think about the pattern, the mood, the texture. You live with the world in a different way.
Yeah. You focus on shapes, forms. We can see it here, the
compositions.
desert. And you find it close by. It is documenting not just the beauty of it, but you're also very much drawn to thinking about portraying the heritage and the culture. Mm-hmm. Where does that come from?
Well, to be honest, like maybe for myself as a master graduate in art, communication, specialized in media and culture communication. So inspiration is always like around us. And as an Emirati lady and having a master in culture communication, it's like a noble mission for us to promote our culture and to pass it around in a way that it's not only about passing it to next generation, but today is we are living in a world that has a mixed culture between different people from everywhere, and they have different thoughts. And I feel it's very successful, like to share this kind of cultures together, the traditions. And I feel it's an adding value for the knowledge, and to feel like we are all living in one planet. But there are some details that can be combined with each countries in terms of cultures, traditions, and yeah.
We see on the screen, you can see it in front, it's a bit vague in the light, but the shapes of the stones.
Fossil dunes. That's the fossil dunes at Al-Wathba, and which is considered one of the Arabian nature that's been there for decades. And today, this place is protected as an environment aspects.
Yeah. You spoke in the things I could find and read about photography being a universal language. Karin is showing work all over the globe, and it attracts a crowd, and photography is very popular. Do you feel that we all understand this universal language? Do you sometimes come across somebody that has to be convinced of photography, or is everybody in love with photography that you know?
I think photography is very close to the heart. And we say a picture can be equal for 1,000 of words. Today, all the pictures are power and can impact and affect the communities around the world. And to be honest, I was like worried about the feedback of the video or the campaign that been working for the M11 launch, but I was fascinated and thrilled about the feedback I received from different people that I don't know them. They were coming to my social media, and they felt for some reason engaged with those images and photographs. So I believe sometimes when you have a passion and when you click with love, it comes to people's heart and soul.
Yeah, beautiful. We look at the wonderful, I had to put this in, I had to make a selection, but it was not a problem that I was struck by this photo. You photograph landscape, but very often also this is a topic, a subject that you choose, so the mix between humans, animals in it, and the landscape. Mm-hmm. What is it that you convey in the imagery that we're looking at right now?
It's basically the connection between the animals and the human. There is a big connection between them, and you can sense it how, like the camel is very relaxed and getting along with the woman. And this is how the old days here, they were like living in the desert with the animals, which is one of the main assets until today. And we feel proud about it, and we carry it on. The most important thing about, again, shooting in black and white photography is the feelings, the story of the picture and the feelings behind it. So it was very important for me as a photographer, and I'm still in the learning stage. It's the harmony between the camel or the animal in general and the human. And that's, it gives the added value or the feeling in the story of the picture.
Yeah. Do you see, you call yourself a photographer, you have an education in art. Do you feel that art and photography can be the same? There's always a discussion about it. Should photography be just photography? Is it art? How do you see your work? Is it art and photography, or is it?
To be honest, every time I tell, like, for my surrounding and friends, like, photography, yes, it is an art photography, and especially with the monochrome. I see it shooting in black and white is an art photography.
Yeah. Do you print your work?
Not much, but for this project, I had few prints that I give it to some friends. And sometimes, like when you see the pictures online or in the soft copy through the social media or your computers, it has a feelings, but when you see it printed, it's a totally different story.
I thought about it because the imagery we see on the big screen is such a compelling way. I thought, well, how would this, I always think about how would that translate to a print.
Right.
I see Karin also nodding because I know that you are a collector and very, very fond of a great print. So yeah, I was curious about it to see how this would turn out in a print. Thank you. I mean, there's so many images that we can spend so much time on, but I'd like to talk to you, Hind Taryam, a passionate photographer from Sharjah. And when we talked about bringing the panel together, and we talked about the photographer in Sharjah, I know you're not the only photographer from Sharjah, but it was really a pleasure to have that, because in all the years that I've been working with Xposure, that was always the question that people would ask. And there you are. How did your journey in photography start?
There is no specific way, time frame which it started in. I think I've always been drawn to cameras and photos. I have been going through a lot of National Geographic magazines growing up, and I think, growing up, when you see different images, they sort of leave an imprint in you, and then they could remain dormant for a while, and then when you grow up, you pick up on it. So it's not an aha moment where I woke up one morning and I decided I want to start using a camera and taking photos, but I feel like I've always been drawn to cameras, I've always been drawn to photos, and I think that they're quite powerful in terms of delivering a message or sometimes even bridging a gap. So I guess with that, I started taking it a bit more seriously around 2016, 2017. And I've been using a camera regularly ever since.
Yeah. I read that your passion and the love for photography started by being the family photographer.
Somehow,
that's what
yes.
they told me. So that is kind of like, that was the gift that was given to you, right?
That was.
A camera, and that's where, so you've been photographing then already for quite a while, since your childhood.
I was playing with the camera for a long time. Let's just put it to that, yes.
Yeah. Was that a film camera?
Yes, yes. I'm the generation that lived half my life with film and the other half with digital. So,
And now, is it all digital?
Now it's all digital.
Yeah.
I do have a film, but I'm just overall, I'm nervous to use it.
Yeah. Do you sometimes long back to film, or is that?
I wouldn't say I long back for it, but I would like to experiment with it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You are also a traveler, because we can see that in the work. Svalbard, you look at, it's a series of photos you made in Norway, but Norway is not the only place. What is the, I mean, it would be, it's always easy to put photographers in some sort of box, then you're a travel photographer or you're a portrait photographer. Mm-hmm. I don't want to immediately see you as a travel photographer, but for me it felt like you're not a travel photographer, but you travel to share with us the imagery that you find.
Correct. I enjoy traveling a lot, and I feel like the camera is an extension of my memory. So when I take the photos, it's mainly for documentation purposes. It's mainly for eventually going back, and then you see it, and then all of a sudden you remember everything that happened in that moment in time. You remember if there was any smells, how temperature felt like, you remember. So it is an extension of my memory, and I do enjoy documenting it via the camera. And yeah, so I enjoy traveling, and then I guess these two passions come hand in hand. They work well together. Taking the photos, and going to these places so that I can have something to look back on and remember.
Do you feel that in that way you can connect to us with the viewer to bring us into the world that you see and that you memorize?
Yes, and I hope I give it justice. I hope that when I take a picture of a place or a person, or I hope that I deliver the message in the correct manner for the people, because sometimes, especially when you travel to certain places, people might have certain prejudices or biases. So I hope that I will be able to break through and deliver a different message. It's always very different when you're in the place as opposed to before you go and the stuff that you hear about, the different places. So
I saw landscapes, the ones we saw in Svalbard, but I also see your work where people play a role.
Yes.
This is work made in Africa. I think, where is this?
So there are different parts of Africa. They're both in West Africa. Some of them are from Benin and some of them are from Togo. They're neighboring countries. And there's just something about photographing people. And I think we've had this discussion before. It always, you have to have their consent before you go. I just think it's unethical if you don't. But also at the same time, it captures, it shows us that there is, for me personally, when I see a person and I feel like I want to capture this person, I want to talk to this person for a few minutes before I take their photo, get to know them. In a way, it makes us feel like we're all one, regardless of where we come from, what we look like, and our belief systems. So this is the kind of engagement I feel when I speak to different people before I take their photos, and I hope that is what's being sensed as well.
We hear a lot in the world that people become much more conscious about photography. They don't want to be photographed. Do you ever encounter that they feel, and then you respect that?
Yes,
Yeah?
yes. I mean, sometimes you want to take a picture of somebody and they will give you a strict no. Sometimes even when they see you, for example, when you're walking in a busy, crowded place, the minute they see you with a camera, they will just turn away, and you have to respect that, for sure. But yes, there's a lot of people who don't want to take their photos taken.
I asked you when we went through the gallery, what place in the world is still high on your list? I always think about Zanzibar, but that's because I've seen a wonderful photo reportage about Zanzibar. But what is for you a place in the world that you would still have, or it can be also many places? What is on the list?
The two places that come to mind every time I get asked this question are Antarctica and Japan. So I frequent Japan. I've been there many times. Antarctica, I've been there just one time, and I would love to be able to go back at least one more time.
Yeah.
So these places have resonated very well with me, and I feel like Antarctica has always been a dream, because to me it felt like that was the furthest point in the world, and if you go there, then everything else becomes easier. But also, it just feels like it's what's left of the natural world. It's pristine, and it's a beautiful place to visit.
Yeah. I have some photos. These two I had to juxtapose against each other because it felt, for me, looking at this imagery, exactly what you have spoken about, this connection to them. It feels that you make lots of people very much at ease when you photograph them.
I'd like to think so.
Is that a talent?
Yeah. I'd like to think so. But because, again, I said, we approach them sometimes, and sometimes they approach us. So when obviously it's so much easier when you are approached by the people. But I think when you make them feel seen and you speak to them, then they will obviously feel more comfortable, and they will.
Yeah. But it's not very often you encounter two boys in the same shirt, both having a rabbit. I mean, how did you, do you walk around and do you have sort of an external view that you spot these locations?
No, this was in a park in Kashmir, which we were visiting anyway, and these were kids, they were just playing around, and we just spotted them and decided to speak to them and took their photos. Yeah. I think they're siblings.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
It was such a sweet, wonderful image, and the shirts and the rabbits. You can't make it up. I mean, that's
even
what
if you wanted
see.
to.
Yeah.
There's no way.
But also this, women working,
Yes.
is it tea plantation?
It's a tea plantation. This is in Rwanda, and yeah, basically this is what they do.
When you think about you think about a travel, then you think about you go to Rwanda. Do you have do you research in advance what you want to look at? What do you want to photograph?
Yes, I do. I mean, not necessarily what I want to look at or photograph, but I do go to a place with, sort of like a mental checklist in mind of the places I would like to see or visit. Normally, I travel with a group, so that is actually taken care of. But sometimes, if there is a place where I feel like is not part of the itinerary, I would,
Yeah.
see if we are able to do that, to fit it in. But yes, definitely, whenever I go somewhere, there's definitely something I would have to be on my itinerary for me to go and see.
I see sometimes work in your landscapes where it becomes almost a still life.
Yes.
This house,
Yes.
the boat.
Yeah.
That's the other one I saw in your work, the people, but also your eye for these situations. Is this all in natural light? Do you use
Yes.
flash? No flash?
No flash.
All natural light?
All natural light.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leica.
Leica.
The
There you
magic
go.
of Leica.
I think that's the
It-
Leica
it does
team.
the hard job
Or it's
for
the
you.
Leica fans.
No,
That's
the
it.
Leica fans.
No,
No Leica
it's
team.
not the Leica team. Okay, it's the Leica fans.
With a camera like Leica, it really does all the job for you.
You want a camera that does translate what you
Yes.
see. Yeah.
Yes, and even in my editing, I don't like to over-edit. I like to just bring it back to how I remember it looked like.
Right. Very colorful work. I'm moving forward
Go
to
ahead.
this one.
Yes.
I thought it would be a wonderful photo to say finalize this little chapter
Yes.
in the talk. But when we talked about it yesterday, it gave me much more depth because there was one photo before where you could see the church in Hiroshima that was destroyed by the
Yes.
atomic bomb.
Yes.
But can you share a story with this?
Yes,
about this?
so this is almost like a shrine for Sadako Sasaki. She was born, I think, a few days after the bomb went off, and due to the radiation she was exposed to, she has developed leukemia. And at that point in time, they weren't aware of what leukemia was, so they used to call it the A-bomb disease. And while she was in hospital, she decided to make 1,000 origami cranes, and she thought that if she reached 1,000, she will have good luck and she will recover. She never reached. The story goes that she, I think, went up to 1,004 as opposed to 10,000, but because of that, they put these kind of. It almost looks like a weeping willow tree, and it's full of the origami cranes as a memory, a loving memory of her. And in Japan, they actually don't sell origami. They will sell you the paper, but not the actual cranes made out of the, made out of the origami paper. So this is a tribute to her and to what she was doing during her, illness in the hospital.
Is that the same what your ambition is, to share your imagery with the world, to give the world the imagery that you see?
I hope so. One day, just to document and to be able to share people's stories, that in itself is a gift, and I hope that is what's received.
Yeah. I'm switching back to Karin for a minute because I want to introduce the part of this talk where you have a conversation with Rania. Who made this portrait photo? It's a beautiful portrait photo. Do you?
That's a good question.
A good question.
It's
no
a good
answer.
question.
All right.
No, it was a German photographer.
Was it made with a Leica?
Of course.
Of course it was.
Yes, I beg your pardon.
I once visited the Wetzlar factory where the wonderful lenses and everything is made, and it is actually the birthplace of the gallery. I mean, we see a screenshot here, Bruce Davidson. You always have an exhibition there. But you also organize the Leica Oscar Barnack Award. Can you talk about the history of the Oscar Barnack Award? How that came about?
I mean, perhaps some of you know that Oscar Barnack, in a way, revolutionized the world of photography because he was the one creating the first portable contact camera. So that means with this camera, reportage, documentary, photography in a way started. So before you had only 2 shots with this, and you had to have had a big burden, and you had everything was installed. So then that little first Leica was born, and for the 100th birthday of Oskar Barnack, we created and started with the Leica Oskar Barnack Award. So next year, so this year is the 44th birthday, and so is one of the oldest photo award. And since the beginning, we started with the same topic, man in relation to its environment. And I mean, this is a topic which gets each year, as we know, for all of us on this still so wonderful planet, more and more relevant and important. So, and it's not about 5 pictures, it's not about 10 pictures, it's about 20 to 25 images around a story of this topic. And I'm really quite long already in the jury, and you see very quickly from a photographer, when you look at 20 to 25 images, is she or he able to capture a story in such a huge kind of images? So sometimes at the beginning you say, okay, this is a layout, you can't use it because 5 of these images doesn't fit into the story, and so on and so forth. So, but the prize is not only about money and camera, so the winner gets 40,000 euro and an M camera with a lens. The newcomer, we also have since 13 years the Newcomer Award for photographers until the age of 30. And he gets 10,000 and a Q3 or a Q2, it depends. And this is one part, but the second part is that the finalists, we always have 10 finalists and 2 winners, get a lot of awareness throughout of all our galleries, in photo festivals, sometimes in museum, and the prize ceremony starts in Wetzlar with a, I assume you were there last year, so this is an international ceremony, and it starts with a huge exhibition in the Ernst Leitz Museum. So this is the start, and well, at the moment, you are also exhibited in my gallery in Salzburg, and the journey goes on. So that means we also have this part, we have the LFI, a special LFI magazine only dedicated to the 10 finalists and 2 winners each year. So it's a huge package of awareness. And I think this is very, very important for the photographers. Not only the prize ceremony and the money and the camera, but this long journey afterwards.
It's the giving back of Leica, Oskar Barnack also to the culture of photography. Rania, you were one of the nominees. I would like you to give the floor to Karin to have a conversation. I'll be the one that is serving you with pushing some buttons. So please go ahead, Karin.
Yeah, of course, Rania, my first question would be, how did you get involved in your passionate and empathetic way of photography focused on women? What was the start, the initial click? Yes, that's the way for me.
Okay, I just want to say thank you first to you, to Lars, but also one of my nominators, I was nominated by 2 people, is here in the audience. So, so I'm very honored that Saeed is here and he nominated me. And I was honored to be a finalist. So, I'm trained as an architect, and I fell in love with photography, photographing my children.
I heard you have 4.
I have 4. My life was absolute chaos, and it seems like as soon as I picked up the camera, things fell into place, and I could handle the mess and the chaos. So it was life-changing for me, and I fell in love with the craft of photography and working in the darkroom. I started with Mamiya 7, then got a Leica because I started traveling a lot, and I ended up with so many rolls of film. The Mamiya 7 was a rangefinder, and the Leica was a rangefinder. So I love rangefinders, and so I photographed my kids. And then after September 11, I wanted to start photographing in the Middle East as well. I live in the United States. The narrative and the rhetoric was very negative, and it was them versus us. And I wanted to start photographing to show a different story from
the Lebanon that I know. And I started also photographing in Palestinian refugee camps from Palestinian origins. And I found myself very drawn to the women. I had that access to the women. And at first, photographing in the refugee camps, the conditions were tough. And it was a little uncomfortable. Then eventually I realized that there was this relationship I built with the women and the mothers, that it didn't matter where they were from, where I was from. We had that secret connection. And it was liberating for me to just, we were equal, like we were, and since then, it's kind of became a passion for me. I lost my mother very young. Ironically, my role model in my whole life has been my father. So it's the fact that I'm drawn to women there might be something psychological that needs to be analyzed here. I don't know. But then I had daughters, and I became fascinated with my daughters growing up. And my work since then has been following them through the ages. This is like teenage girls in their bedrooms, and it helped me start understanding my daughters. And again, the work was very personal.
And I mean, just a short, because I forgot something to mention for the Loba, because very often people ask me, oh, do I have to use a Leica? Because you just mentioned you had a Leica, but this is not at all the case. It's open for every camera, and this is very important to say.
Actually, very
only
important,
not for the handies, but every camera is welcome for this price. So,
absolutely. I ended up getting the Leica Photo Women Award. I won that prize, and I was a finalist for the Oscar Barnack, and I was not using a Leica, sorry. I went back to my Mamiya 7 because I felt like I needed to slow down a little bit, and
so at the end, it's
so I'm very
photography.
grateful. Yes.
Yeah. So Rania, you were born and raised in Lebanon, and you live since quite a long time now in the U.S. What kind of connection you have to your, in a way, home country today? Because you, of course, went back to have this, what we have here, exhibited 50 years later, this series of the women Lebanese.
You know, it's interesting. I don't know how many people live in two places. I've been in the United States since 1984. It's scary, almost 40 years now. So most of my life I lived in the US, but I feel an emotional connection to Lebanon that's just part of me. So a lot of my work until the next project, this last project, I was photographing in both cultures all the time because I wanted to focus on shared humanity. And since the port of Beirut explosion on the 4th of August 2020, my heart went to Lebanon, and I just felt so connected, and I was away, and I just needed to be photographing there. So this is part of She, which is not yet this project, and this was, again, about photographing in Lebanon, in Palestinian refugee camps, and in the United States. For me, it was focusing on women growing up, texture, physicality, and tactility, but it started becoming a segue to the new work that I'm making. So.
And is there a difference for you photographing women in the Lebanon, because you did it a lot, and also in the US? Do you see there is a difference in approaching the woman, or how they behave, how they are?
It's interesting. We keep thinking there's so much difference, and for me, when I'm working with somebody, it's just me and her, and at that moment, she's the most important person in the world to me as I'm working with her, and it doesn't matter where she's from. Now, though, as emotionally, I'm drawn to photographing to Lebanon because I started that after the port explosions, and I realized things kept getting worse, even when you kept thinking things don't get worse. And now I'm realizing it's the 50th anniversary of the Civil War next year. So I feel like, and this war shaped who I am. I mean, that's why I left for the United States. And even these women who are the age that I was when I left, even though they weren't even born when the war happened, it's part of their collective DNA. They're shaped by it. If they haven't left, some of them, their parents, some of them, the parents stayed and now the kids are leaving. So it's history repeating itself.
And how do you meet this women? And do you have already an idea in mind of the setting of the portraits? Because they're totally different and very interesting, each one. So how does this happen?
I used to just stop people on the street anywhere. I mean, I used to be obsessed with hair, and I would go and knock on people's shoulders, and I had a formula by then. Like I would say, I would love to photograph you, but I'm not photographing then. So I would say, and I didn't expect an answer. I would ask for their email. It took me a while to get to the right formula. So I would take their email, send them a blank email, and copy myself. Very important, because when I go back to my computer, it's in my inbox, I don't forget about it. So then I send them more information, and I send them my website and what I'm doing, and I get a very high rate of yeses. But now I started also putting, like every time before I go to Lebanon, I put it on Instagram, I'm coming to Lebanon, and if you would like to be part of my project, I would love you to be part of it. So the settings is very collaborative. I talk to them on the phone, and I start learning about them. Like some woman, for example, is into theater, and so we photograph we managed to get into an abandoned theater. Here, for example, she's from southern Lebanon and from Khiam, which is known for that detention center. It was very rough during the war. So a lot of it comes from the women. And when they don't have an idea, we create something together, because there's also like the collective, there's a collective memory there. So it's
really a teamwork.
It's
together
teamwork.
with them.
It's very much a teamwork. I never know what I'm doing before I get there. I'm always nervous before I go to a shoot, just like she is. And we kind of create that together.
And I mean, this is a difficult question, perhaps, but and it is asked a lot at the moment. Do you see there is a different view on photography and being a woman photographer in contrary to men? Is there a difference?
I think we're living at a great moment in time for women photographers, because at least everywhere, but I mean in the United States now there are many exhibitions, there are museums going out of their way because they realize they haven't collected enough women, so they're collecting women. There's a National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. that's a fantastic place. And so I feel like it's a good thing happening now. For me, it's also an advantage for my subject matter, which is I'm photographing women. Without generalizing, but I work so intimately with the women that I don't know if a man could take the same kind of pictures without having to throw anybody under the bus. But for me, there's a motherly relationship with them a little bit.
I mean, because you're only or mainly photographing and focusing on women. That's perhaps the wrong question then.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you had a wish for the future of photography,
well,
what would that be?
I hope we keep making prints, because I worry that now photography is becoming what we see like on Instagram like that. Like I had an exhibition in Boston, and I had never shown that work, but I had posted a picture, I guess, a few months ago on Instagram, and somebody kept like, oh, I know this picture. I'm like, no, you don't. So I hope we still appreciate the craft and the making prints, and we take the time to look at images and not like this 2-second scrolling.
I mean, I think this is really important, because I very often say a picture is a picture when it's printed out, the rest is data. Data you can change always in any place, you can do what you want with it. But when the picture is printed out and is on the wall, you can't change it. And I think this is also a reason why we have the galleries, why we have the museum, why we take care of this printing and printing.
And it becomes unique, the way, the size you want to make it, how you want to frame your picture, how I think for me it's important. I hope we don't lose that. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I believe myself, and we have a lot of examples from the past, that a picture can change the view on the world, the view on different situations. Do you believe in that? That pictures can still, with all this Instagram fake and social media, can change the world?
Absolutely, on many levels, I think. I mean, I'm hoping my work is bringing awareness in the United States of Arab women as well, because in the United States, often people tend to think of Arab women in a very one-dimensional manner, and really come in all sorts of colors and shapes and religions, right? So people don't even know that. So for me, that's important. But on another level, I feel like even now, with what's happening in the world, without getting into specifics, Instagram is giving us an image of what's happening in the world, which is important, that we probably would not have had. And it's giving access to cameras in places where you don't have journalists right now, like Gaza, the phones are giving the means to show the photographs of what's happening to the rest of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks a lot, dear Rania.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
With 2 minutes left, it's always good to have one more round of questions. You brought it up. I actually was sitting here and thinking, as the only man on the panel, and rightly so. For me, actually, it's a wonderful thing that we sit here and we talk about the work and not specifically about women in photography. Even though we, of course, talked about this panel as the voices of women in photography and art. Do you feel, Fatma, that it matters? Is your eye different than? Your eye is always different. It's a silly question. How do you see your role as a woman in photography?
I totally agree with them about women in photography industry, and I believe it's booming even in our country, and I think this will continue booming, and we are having support from everywhere, like from the government, from families, from the surrounding friends. Everyone is just like encouraging us, even the audience. The audience is I believe they are a key role in encouraging us and pushing to provide more artwork that are meaningful for today, and to be great ambassadors for our nations.
Yeah, wonderful. Hind, do you feel the same?
Yes, I have to agree with all of them. I feel like we are now being put in the forefront, and we are now being, are respected in, the way that we represent ourselves, and the way that we represent, for example, photography, and how we show up for the world, and what we choose to share with the world as well through our lenses and our cameras. So I feel like, yes, it is a good time to be a woman and to have a camera in her hand.
Yeah, I think it's important because in all the years that I've worked here, I've always mentioned let's keep an eye on it. I think the balance is being struck here between young, old, male, female, in a very good way. I think I agree also with you, Rania. The certain photographs that you make in the way that you make is very, very special and distinct, and I think that not many men would be able to do that, even the most modern man.
I had something interesting yesterday, because I had a guy who came to the booth, and he said, I do the same kind of pictures, and he showed me pictures of women in the environment. And I'm like, oh, this looks great, but they felt so sexual to me. Mm-hmm. And I think it's easier for men to fall into that trap, that women, without generalizing, please, I don't mean that, but I think I don't want to walk into this.
Let's not, because I think that's a wonderful conclusion. The time has run out, and I would say the moment that we don't have to talk about it, then we have really won, all of us.
Sorry, should I not?
And I think we will get to that point for sure. Hind, all of you, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your work with us. Go look at the work that is on the wall. There's many works to see, but promise me you will take a special close look on the work that is on the wall.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Well done.